Now that Marvel's resident King of the Sea has made his debut in the MCU, you have to wonder how his future will take shape following Wakanda Forever. Today, we dive into the character of Namor and his potential future in the MCU. Stay tuned. Hey guys, my name is DJ, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a pretty big movie for the MCU. It showed the effects of Chadwick Boseman, aka King T'Challa's sudden passing. It introduced Riri Williams as the spiritual successor to Tony Stark, and it revealed that Shuri is the new Black Panther. But in a movie that had to address and introduce a lot to the MCU, perhaps one of the biggest introductions coming into this universe is the Submariner Namor. Namor, king of the hidden underwater nation of Talokan, has already proven to be kind of a big deal in the MCU. He has a massive amount of strength, wisdom, and resources behind him as he leads his mysterious new nation into the forefront of the MCU. However, when it comes to this new character, you have to wonder what this Sea Man can do now that he's been dropped into the middle of the MCU. And while I'll get to a few potential options for Namor in a little bit, I will say now that I kind of feel like Namor's introduction came at a pretty bad time for the character. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of Namor being in the MCU, and after Wakanda Forever, I am completely sold on the idea of him in this universe. But if you ask me, it feels like he's shown up at maybe the busiest time in MCU history. When just looking at the upcoming projects for the MCU and the storylines leading into those projects, it's kinda hard for me to pinpoint exactly where Namor fits in all of this. We have the God-related storylines shown with Thor, Love and Thunder and Moon Knight that he would feel a little out of place in. We have the multiverse stuff with Kang the Conqueror that he kinda doesn't really fit into. And then we have Secret Wars, which I guess he could fit into, but that's so far away at this point that he feels like he needs something to do until then. And sure, I guess you could just have Namor hiding away in his underwater nation, but that feels a little odd considering how big of a role he had in Wakanda Forever and how big of a role he could have given the right story. And if you were planning on just hiding Namor away until Secret Wars, then why even introduce him in the first place? So that begs the question once again, what exactly can Namor do in the MCU? And the first answer I could really think of for that question actually comes from what happens near the end of his debut movie. By the end of Wakanda Forever, the two nations of Talokan and Wakanda decide to form an alliance, putting an end to their battle in the movie. And while Namor hints that he will betray Wakanda in the future, I actually think that there are more interesting possibilities to come from these two nations working together rather than tearing each other apart. You see, in Wakanda Forever, it is shown that the US and other foreign nations of the world are looking to infiltrate Wakanda and somehow steal their vibranium. Which, I mean, you know Wakanda ain't gonna let that slide. So if the other countries persist in trying to take over Wakanda, then it's very likely that we could see Wakanda go to war with these foreign nations like the US. And considering Talokan was shown to be the only other country with a large amount of vibranium, I could very easily see them deciding to stand alongside Wakanda as both look to protect their individual resources. Which, in turn, could end up with an MCU version of World War III. Which, I know, is kind of a lot to deal with considering all the other MCU storylines going on right now. But bizarrely, the more I fester on it, the more I think that this is actually where we're heading in the MCU. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine practically said in Wakanda Forever that the US is looking to go after Wakanda. Not only that, but the US already kind of feels like they're preparing for some sort of big attack with their creation of their upcoming Thunderbolts team. We already know the Thunderbolts are coming soon, but if you take a step back, it's kind of weird that they are even getting a movie in the first place. Why would the government need this private group of superpowered beings unless they have a specific idea in mind? My bold prediction for the future of the MCU is that the Thunderbolts are actually being created to somehow infiltrate Wakanda and steal all their resources for the US. Which, again, could lead to World War III like I just mentioned, with Namor deciding to stand alongside Shuri and the rest of Wakanda to protect their resources. However, obviously, Namor doesn't have to be reserved just for this World War kind of scenario. while I think that Tolkien going up against any land-based country would be cool, Namor doesn't have to be restricted to just fighting other countries. No, Namor from the comics is actually a pretty layered character, able to build all these complex relationships through his anti-hero status. And one such example of this comes from his relationship with the Fantastic Four. Which, hey, wouldn't you know it, but there's a Fantastic Four movie coming very soon. So I could actually see Namor interacting with the Fantastic Four given their bizarre history in the comics. While Namor was originally just another villain for the Fabulous Foursome, Namor actually grew to have a complicated relationship with all the members of the Fantastic Four through a bizarre romantic relationship with Sue Storm. Maybe Namor's fishy smell was just a huge turn-on for Sue Storm, I don't know. But either way, Namor does have that comic book history with the Fantastic Four that could be inspiration for their relationship in the future. And considering the folks over at Marvel insist that the Fantastic Four movie won't really be an origin film, then perhaps they may have more time to dedicate to Namor specifically. Or perhaps they will use that time to dedicate to Namor and another character. That's right, once again, I'm here to talk about Doctor Doom. In the comics, Namor also has a past relationship with the main villain of the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom. Their more villainous partnership over the years would, of course, show the two sides continuously stab each other in the back for their own selfish gain. It was even rumored that Doctor Doom would appear in Wakanda Forever, with many fans predicting that his nation of Latveria would show up in this war between Wakanda and Talokan. Hell, we might have seen Latveria already in the MCU. There are fan theories roaming around suggesting that this castle from Moon Knight is the same castle from Latveria. And from a side-by-side comparison between the castles from both the show and the comics, it's not hard to see how you could come to that conclusion. And considering both characters have those strong ties to the Fantastic Four specifically, I could totally see them somehow finding each other in the MCU. Just to tie it back to that World War idea, I could see Latveria and Talokan teaming up against the other nations of the world for some sort of global power. Or screw it, why not just combine all these theories and add Latveria to that team up between Talokan and Wakanda? But either way, as you can tell by these pitches, it feels like Namor is going to be a very dangerous and prominent character for the MCU. Sure, it's a little difficult to place him in the current storylines going on in the MCU, but he just has so much potential in this new universe. And after his portrayal in Wakanda Forever, I am completely sold on this relatively silly comic character becoming one of the biggest forces on Earth. Sure, he doesn't have to go to war or anything, but there are so many pieces on the table that suggest this direction for his character in the future. Remember, Talokan is still hidden from the rest of the world, so the discovery of this country is bound to happen sooner or later. And when it does, perhaps the surface world of Earth will realize that its biggest threat doesn't come from outer space, but rather underwater. Whether he decides to land on the side of evil or even the side of good, Namor surely has a bright future ahead of him as he swims into the MCU. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Sorry if I sound a little different in this one, it's just cause I'm fighting off a cold and it's just been kicking my ass the past few weeks. But I want to know what you're looking forward to when it comes to Namor in the MCU. And what other theories do you have about the future of Marvel's resident Submariner? Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But until next time, have a good day. Bye-bye.